The CEO had gone undercover to see what his employees were really like. But when he opened the supply closet late one night, he didn't expect to find someone sleeping on the floor. A janitor, curled up, arms around a duffel bag. But it was what he found inside that duffel that changed everything. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Nathan Hale wasn't just the CEO of Hale Dynamics. He was the name that carried the company's billion-dollar reputation. But no one recognized him tonight. Dressed in faded jeans and an old hoodie, he walked through his own corporate building like a ghost. He'd had enough of the filtered reports, the fake smiles, and the curated boardroom presentations. For the last week, he'd been showing up at night, quietly observing, cleaning up forgotten mugs in the break room just to see who noticed. No one ever did. Until he found the closet. It was 1:34 a.m. He turned the corner on the 4th floor. A supply closet door was slightly ajar. Light off. Quiet. He almost ignored it until he heard a faint cough. Pushing it open, his eyes adjusted, and he froze. There on the cold floor was a young woman wrapped in a threadbare blanket, curled up next to a mop bucket. Her brown hair was tied back, face streaked with fatigue and something far deeper. Her employee badge read, Sophie Rains, Janitorial Staff. Her breathing was steady. She was asleep. Nathan took a step closer, then noticed a small duffel bag beneath her head, torn at the side. Partially open, he crouched down, hesitated, then gently pulled the edge open. Inside, photos. Dozens of them. A little boy, a hospital room, letters, medical bills, a sticky note. Rent due July 1st. Don't be late again. Nathan swallowed hard. This wasn't just a woman sleeping on the job. She was living here. He backed out quietly and closed the door. He should have walked away. But something in him didn't let him. Something cracked open. The next morning, Nathan stood in the HR office. Not as the CEO, but as Nate Tempstaff from corporate operations. He requested janitorial records. When they hesitated, he flashed a badge that said, Internal Facilities Audit. Sophie Rains had been working nights for 11 months, never took sick days, paid late on every rent deduction. HR flagged her twice for sleeping on shift. But no one investigated further. Just a warning, just paperwork. She had a son, 6 years old, name Zachary Rains. No father on file. Emergency contact was a neighbor. Nathan felt something twist in his chest. This woman was working nights, cleaning floors while trying to keep a sick child alive, and no one noticed, not even him. And yet, she never asked for help. He watched her that night from the shadows of the break room. She moved quietly, wiped down tables, picked up gum wrappers others ignored, refilled paper towel rolls with care as if every roll mattered. When she sat on the back stairs and pulled out a half-eaten granola bar from her pocket, Nathan finally stepped forward. You ever sleep? Sophie stiffened, startled. He smiled gently. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. She looked at him warily. You work here? Sort of. Just helping with internal inspections. She nodded, eyes tired but polite. Well, there's not much to inspect here. Nathan sat beside her. Looks like someone's working harder than most. She didn't reply. Then quietly, if you're here to report me for sleeping on the job, I understand. Just give me till Friday. I'll find another shift somewhere. He blinked. Number, I'm not here for that. Silence. Then she said something he'd never forget. I just want to give my son a normal childhood. A roof, that's all. I'm not trying to cheat the system. I just ran out of time. Nathan couldn't look away. This wasn't just an employee. This was a fighter, and she was invisible to everyone. The next evening, Nathan made a decision that shifted everything. He wasn't going to write a check. He wasn't going to hand her a promotion out of pity. Instead, he was going to do what no one else had done for Sophie Raines. See her. Really see her. And give her a shot that was rightfully hers. He spent the afternoon pulling records, custodial logs, surveillance footage, timestamps, cleaning reports. The more he read, the clearer it became. Sophie ran the night shift like a commander. Floors gleamed. Equipment was maintained without complaint. She trained new hires herself, off the clock, covered for sick colleagues, worked 6 nights a week without ever demanding overtime. She didn't just clean the building, she held it up. He pulled his phone and dialed a number. Carol, I need a name pulled from the shadows. Janitorial staff, night shift, Sophie Raines. Cross-check with HR, training, maintenance, and security. I want full internal references. A pause. You want a janitor vetted? Nathan's voice turned sharp. Number I want a pillar vetted. And don't tell anyone I asked. Not even the board. He hung up before they could ask more. That night, he caught her again in the break room. Her back was turned. She was refilling a vending machine, not part of her job, but something she did when the vendor ran late. Sophie, he said softly. She turned, surprised. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sealed folder. What's this? She asked, hesitant. Open it. She did, carefully. Inside, an invitation to an internal idea pitch session. 1 slot left open, reserved for auxiliary staff with internal proposals to improve company infrastructure. She blinked. What is this? Nathan leaned against the vending machine. You've been suggesting improvements through work orders for months. I read every one. You know this building better than anyone. I figured you'd have more to say. She shook her head. But I'm a janitor. You're the most overqualified janitor I've ever met, he said. The pitch session's in 2 days. If you don't go, the slot's wasted. But if you do... He didn't finish. Just watched her eyes shimmer. She looked down at the folder again, fingers trembling slightly. Why are you doing this? And he said it without hesitation. Because I've been watching this company from the top for years. But it's people like you who carry it, and no one ever bothers to look down. Sophie didn't respond, but she didn't throw the folder away either. She took it home and stayed up all night, writing. 2 days later, the executive board gathered in conference room 4B. Suits, ties, manicured nails, rehearsed smiles. Nathan sat at the end of the table, back in his tailored blazer, looking every bit the billionaire CEO. Final slot? One of the VPs asked. Some auxiliary pick? Nathan nodded. Let's see if we missed something. The door opened, and Sophie stepped in, wearing the only nice blouse she owned, hair tied back neatly, a notepad clutched in both hands. Half the room exchanged amused glances, until she began to speak. She didn't use buzzwords. She didn't pretend to be corporate. She spoke about trash routes and floor buffer inefficiencies, about overlooked stockroom placements, about ways to save $70,000 in supplies and reduce janitorial injuries by 30%, without spending a dime more. And when she talked about the team, how they'd taken care of each other during night shifts, patched up broken machines with tape and faith, something shifted. She wasn't just giving a pitch, she was telling the truth. By the time she stopped, there was a silence in the room that didn't come from disbelief, but from shame. One VP cleared his throat. How? How do you know all this? And Sophie answered, looking straight at Nathan. Because I've lived it. I mop these halls. I sleep 3 hours a night. And I know what's broken, because I trip over it. Nathan stood. All those who support testing her model company-wide, raise your hands. Every hand rose, one by one. Back at the elevator, Sophie stood quietly, folder clutched to her chest, heart still racing. The doors were about to close when Nathan slipped inside beside her. Neither spoke for a moment. Then she looked at him, eyes narrowed. "You're not just an auditor, are you?" He smirked faintly. "I'm the guy who owns the mop closet." She blinked. "You're?" He nodded, and then he said something that stunned her. "Thank you for letting me borrow your company. I didn't know what it really looked like until I saw it through your eyes." The elevator dinged. He stepped out, left her speechless, and changed everything. Sophie didn't sleep the night after the pitch. Not because of nerves, but because something deep inside her had shifted. For the first time in years, she felt seen. But when she showed up the next evening, the supply closet door was wide open, and everything was gone. Her blanket, her duffel, the photo of Zach she kept tucked behind the old mop handle, gone. She dropped her cleaning cart, heart slamming in her chest. Then she found a note taped to the shelf. "You're not welcome to live here anymore. This is a workplace, not a homeless shelter." Building admin. Her hands shook. It wasn't signed, but she knew exactly who did it. Ronald Trask, facilities manager. The same man who sneered when she asked for extra gloves last winter. The one who laughed when she slipped on a wet stairwell, then filed a write-up for carelessness. She stormed down the stairwell, ready to demand answers, but stopped cold when she reached the third-floor landing. There he was, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, smirking. "You really thought you could play dress-up and pretend to be one of them?" He spat. "You embarrassed this entire department. I've been here 16 years. No one invited me to pitch to the board. You never had anything to say that wasn't about yourself," Sophie snapped. He took a threatening step forward. "You got special treatment. That CEO guy, he's soft. But this building, this job, it belongs to people like me. You're a broom. I'm not the one who sleeps while the rest of us work," she shot back. His smirk fell. For a second, Sophie thought he might hit her. But instead, he leaned in and whispered, "You'll be gone by next week. I've already submitted a report. Said you lied about your hours, that you faked your pitch with help, that you're stealing janitorial supplies for your kid." Her stomach dropped. "You can't prove that." "I don't have to," he sneered. "All I need is one board member to believe it." Then he walked away, and Sophie stood alone, shaking. The next morning, she was summoned to HR, not by email, but by a stern-faced man from legal. When she entered the room, she expected judgment, condescension, maybe even security guards. But instead, Nathan Hale was already sitting there, at the head of the table. His sleeves were rolled up, no blazer, no pretense. He looked tired and furious. The HR rep cleared his throat. Mr. Hale wanted to address this personally. Sophie sat down, throat dry. "You believe him, don't you?" Nathan didn't respond at first. Then he pulled out a folder, thicker than the one she had received days ago. "I had our internal audit team vet your work history, your swipe-ins, camera logs, training hours, supply usage, every detail going back to your first day here." He pushed it toward her. "And then I did the same for Ronald Trask." Sophie opened it slowly. The first page showed Ronald's signature on dozens of false overtime slips. The next pages showed surveillance screenshots, him arriving late, napping in the break room, yelling at junior staff. Then Nathan spoke. voice low but sharp. You've done more for this building in a year than he has in 16. And if it were up to me, you'd be in his seat by next week. Sophie blinked. Wait, are you promoting me? He paused. No. She froze. But I'm creating a new role. You'll oversee janitorial systems across all 3 of our corporate buildings. You'll lead training, design cleaning protocols, and report directly to the board. Silence. You'll still clean floors if you want, but you'll own them now. Sophie couldn't breathe. She looked down at the folder again and saw a new badge inside. Sophie Raines, Director of Operations, Night Facilities Division. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept it. She nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Nathan stood, but before he left, he said one more thing. Ronald Trask will be escorted out by the end of the day. He doesn't know it yet. But I wanted you to hear it first. He walked out. And for the first time since she took this job, Sophie cried, not from exhaustion, but from relief. That night, she returned to her usual route one last time, mop in hand, uniform on, badge tucked safely in her pocket. She found a note on her locker. A different one, written in blue pen on the back of a vending machine receipt. You remind me of my mom. She worked hard too. I didn't know who else to tell, but you inspire me. Thank you, Caleb, intern. She folded it quietly and placed it next to her son's photo in her new office. 3 weeks after her promotion, Sophie felt like she was finally breathing air again. Her nights weren't consumed by floor wax fumes and worry. She still cleaned because she wanted to. But now, she also held meetings, taught others, designed systems. Her voice, once drowned in silence, now echoed in boardrooms. She even saved up enough for a new apartment, one with a real bedroom for Zach. That morning, she packed his lunch with a real sandwich and a juice box he'd picked himself. He giggled when she slipped in a sticky note that said, "You are my sunshine." "I'm going to show it to Ms. Harper," he said proudly, hopping into the school van. "Make me proud, kiddo," she smiled. But by noon, her phone rang. It wasn't the school, it was the hospital. Zach had collapsed during gym. She was out the door in seconds. The fluorescent lights of the ER blurred as she raced down the hall, breath ragged. Zach was already in a bed, pale as chalk, wires attached to his chest. A nurse with kind eyes was trying to reassure her. His heart rate spiked abnormally during activity. He's stable now, but we need to run a full panel. Scan, blood work, ECG. I don't care what it takes. Just fix him, she whispered. The nurse hesitated. Ms. Raines, are you still uninsured? Sophie went still. She had put in the HR paperwork, but it didn't kick in until the next cycle. The nurse lowered her voice. I'm sorry. We can still stabilize him, but the full cardiac panel's over $5,000. If it's urgent, I'll pay in cash, she said, already reaching for her bag. But there wasn't $5,000 in there. Not even $2,000. Just rent money. The nurse gave her a moment alone. Sophie stood there, trembling beside Zach's tiny, sleeping form. And she did something she hadn't done in years. She cried into his bed sheets. Outside the ER, Nathan was just stepping into a board call when his assistant rushed in. Sir, it's Sophie. Her son collapsed. They're at CityMed. The phone nearly slipped from his hand. He didn't ask questions. He just ran. He arrived at the hospital 15 minutes later. No security, no assistant. Just a man who knew he owed something far bigger than a paycheck. He found her sitting alone, face buried in her hands, in a blue plastic chair outside pediatrics. She looked up, And he saw everything. The panic, the shame, the fear she couldn't afford to feel. "I didn't call you," she said softly. "I didn't wait for you to," he replied. Then he reached into his jacket and handed her a folded form. It was already signed, authorization for full care, every test, every scan, private room, no limits. Sophie stared at it. "I can't let you—" Nathan knelt beside her. "You already paid me more than anyone else ever has. With your work, your loyalty, your truth. Let me do this. Not as a CEO, but as someone who sees you." Her shoulders collapsed, and for once, she let someone else carry the weight. Zach was moved to a private pediatric suite. The scans showed a congenital heart defect. Treatable, but only if caught early. Sophie spent the night at his side, holding his hand. The next morning, when she woke up in the stiff vinyl chair, Nathan was asleep in the one next to her. Suit jacket draped over her shoulders, a tray of untouched hospital coffee at his feet. He looked exhausted, but he stayed. 2 days later, Zach was smiling again, showing Nathan a crayon drawing of their janitorial supply closet labeled "My Mom's Castle." Sophie laughed through tears. "I guess that closet really was something." Nathan smiled faintly. Some castles just need better lighting. Back at the office, the board called a surprise meeting. Nathan arrived in jeans. Sophie sat beside him in her new badge. One member raised a concern. "Mr. Hale, you authorized a 6-figure personal medical expense for an employee's child, without legal clearance." Nathan stood and simply said, "Then fire me." The room went dead silent. "I'll sign my own severance. But if this company ever becomes the kind of place where we calculate a child's heartbeat against quarterly profit, I want no part in it." Then he added, "If any of you feel differently, speak now or step down." No one did. Instead, every single board member stood, one by one, and applauded. 3 months later, Sophie stood at the front of the annual company gala, in a navy dress her co-workers had bought her. Nathan handed her the microphone and the new plaque. "Sophie Raines, Employee of the Year." She spoke just 9 words into the mic. Some people mop floors, some people mop hearts, and the room fell silent. Then, applause, real, loud, honest. Outside the gala, as the lights dimmed, Nathan caught her before she left. Zach was sleeping on her shoulder. "He calls you Uncle Nate now," she smirked. "I earned it." She turned to him. "Why me?" she asked. "Out of everyone." And his answer was quiet, but unshakable. "Because I was sleeping through my own company, until I found someone who woke me up."